Governance experts are suggesting that massive Rogers outage and the recent death of a Suncor contractor at a Suncor site in northern Alberta are highlighting shortcomings in corporate crisis management and communications. Joining me is an expert. He's Richard Leblanc, professor of governance law and ethics at York University. Richard, thanks a great deal for joining us. There seem to be lots to talk about in these two stories. Let's begin with the Rogers story. One thing that's notable, and I know you've taken note of it, is how long it took Rogers to say anything about that outage. I first became aware of it when I was in a taxi on the way to work at about 6 a.m. My taxi driver said, "You're not going to be able to pay with your debit card because my mobile terminal, which is on the Rogers network," he said that, "is not working properly." And yet it was hours after that, close to noon, I'll say, Eastern time, before we heard a peep from Rogers.
Yeah, correct, Paul. And the peep was a technical person who almost seemed annoyed or irritated at questions that were being asked by the journalist. So the Rogers employee was not camera ready. So I think we're learning a couple of crisis management lessons from both from Rogers and from Suncor is to anticipate. Boards are asking management teams, what's the worst possible scenario that can happen? It could be a safety fatality. It could be an outage. And show us, this is the board, show us that we have a public relations plan in place to be able to respond sooner rather than later. And I'm thinking of the Michael McCain situation about 10 years ago when employees started dying, and Michael McCain was instructed by the board to go out and face the music and be authentic and to say what was going to be done to identify the root cause. So I think having a playbook and not leaving it to chance and making sure that the CEO is camera ready, and that includes media training for the CEO as well. So I think things are changing, and you should always anticipate that something can go south on you, and the CEO should be front and center.
And the McCain situation you're referring to, I believe, is the listeriosis, I believe is the correct word. It was a food contamination issue, and some customers were actually dying. It was a tragic situation. And yes. I recall your recollections are the same as mine. Michael McCain was the public face of that company soon and for a prolonged period of time. What about the tragic situation at Suncor? It's first and foremost a human tragedy. There's a family out there that has lost a loved one. The CEO here resigned immediately. What are your thoughts on how Suncor has managed that situation?
Well, there's a path forward for Suncor. There have been, and it's absolutely tragic, and that's what reminded me of McCain. The 13 fatalities at their Suncor site since 2014, and with the CEO resigning, the non-executive chair, and in this case it's Mike Wilson, he is now in play to come forward and to say, similar to Michael McCain or the interim CEO that they have, that we will rectify the situation. We're going to conduct a safety audit, including an independent one over internal controls. We will focus on culture. We will implement best practices, and we will do better. And that forestalls the activist, which is Elliott Investment Management, which is a very aggressive hedge fund in the United States that is now attacking Suncor. And this is not Mike Wilson's first rodeo. When Mike was CEO of Agrium, he fought Jana and he won. So there's a path forward to protect yourself against an activist attack. And the activist attacks now, and this goes back to Exxon and first engine number one, are attacking the entire value chain, including climate change, environment, health and safety, safety records, and many Canadian companies in the oil patch are not used to that type of scrutiny over their entire value chain. So there's a path forward for Suncor, but it involves effective crisis management. And it's very similar for Rogers, is coming forward and saying, we will identify the root cause, and we will take all steps to ensure that that is made public and that internal controls are bolstered and that this never happens again. That's what Canadians, in the case of Rogers, are looking for, and in the case of Suncor, employees, contractors, and shareholders. So you have to sort of come clean right out of the gate and manage the message is what boards are asking now.
Great.